Welcome to the Digital Enterprise Society podcast, addressing all aspects of the digital enterprise, inspiring connection without boundaries and creation without limits. Thank you for tuning in. Here are your hosts, Thom Singer and Craig Brown.
Hello there, and welcome to the Digital Enterprise Society podcast. Thank you so much for coming along on the journey of this show that we designed to be a resource for those who work in and around PLM. The Digital Enterprise Society is a forum for the exchange of ideas surrounding the tools, processes, and practices used across the product lifecycle. To learn more, visit digitalenterprisesociety.org. My name is Thom Singer, and I have the honor to co-host this podcast. And usually I am joined by my co-host, Craig Brown, who is an industry leader and former PLM leader at General Motors. However, once a month or so, I do these one-on-one interviews with career experts. And today, we're going to talk about dealing with difficult people and stopping complainers and energy drainers. Now, I'm sure that those of you listening, you don't have anyone who you've ever worked with who is a complainer, an energy drainer, or just a difficult person to work with. But just in case that you're thinking, oh yeah, I have that on my team, we're talking to an expert. Today I am joined by Linda Swindling. Now she is a recovering employment attorney who now equips leaders to negotiate what matters most to them and their organizations. Hey Linda, welcome to the Digital Enterprise Society podcast.
Thanks, Tom. Excited to be here.
Oh, I'm glad to have you. So, Linda, let's talk a little bit about your background as a lawyer, first of all. So you worked in the employment law section. What was it like being an employment lawyer, and what led you then to becoming a consultant, a speaker, and an author, and helping people navigate their own employment woes?
Right. I practiced 10 years in employment law and clerked 3. I tell you, it was frustrating at times because a lot of times clients would come in. They would describe the problem, whether it was with their employee or their boss or their coworker. And I'd think, oh my gosh, I sure wish you'd come in a week ago, a week after this happened, because we could fix it then. But now months later, years later, you're going to either have to fight this lawsuit or you're going to have to file one or file a grievance. And so many of those things could have been prevented. And it's all communication. It's understanding how people think, and it's understanding what motivates them.
So, Linda, you call your work negotiating work drama. You don't call it dealing with difficult people. Why do you have that distinction?
Well, I think a lot of your listeners know this distinction, right? You know how to negotiate, and you know that when there's a negotiation, there's an end to it. Something stops. You either get what you wanted, or you walk away, or you decide you're going to do something later. When you're dealing and constantly managing people that are angry or negative, and there is no stop to it. So I don't want to keep dealing with them. I want them to stop complaining to me, stop draining my energy, go away and be productive.
So why is it that educated people who are working in big companies, who are often highly successful, why is it that they cause workplace drama?
A great question. We all have a negative side to us. We have, you've probably, you worked in any organization, you've done some sort of personality styles or thinking or communication styles, and they kind of touch on, and there's a little negative side to this when you get stressed. Well, give me a break. We all get stressed, especially when you're dealing with, the industry that your listeners are in. It's extremely stressful. So when we are at our best, if you can think of your best, Tom, you're using your superpowers for good, right? And some of your best things are you're good at connecting with people, you're good at communicating. Maybe somebody's good at logic, solving problems, following systems. Now, here's what happens when we get stressed. We use those superpowers to get what we need the most, what we're craving. So we're not when you're dealing with constant complainers, constant energy drainers, they never seem to get out of that little brief moment where you say, I'm so frustrated, I don't know what to do. They live there and they're trying to fill a need.
So Lynn, in your work, you talk about the fact that there's 5 different types of complainers. You have sort of these complainer archetypes. What are the 5 different types and how do we identify them?
Yeah, great. The 5 types are, there's whiners, there's complicators, there's prima donnas, there's controllers, and then there's the evil toxics. So all 5 of those may not bother you. And what was so interesting to me is one size does not fit all. You cannot fix every single relationship you have with someone who's negative by doing one thing over and over again. Which one do you think is the most one that we got the most people said, oh, I'm seeing this all the time?
I'd think control freak.
The controllers, yeah. So that's interesting. No, the controllers are the ones that most of us don't know how to deal with. One that people say drives them crazy, and will probably drive several of the people that are listening to this crazy, is the whiners.
And that one you say that's the most common, and I'm nodding my head here thinking, oh yeah, I've worked with a couple of whiners. I'm sure our audience doesn't have any on the teams they work on, but I can see why it's common.
Maybe in the future someone will be hired that way. And you'll want to prevent that, or you'll see that. So let me tell you how you know. Would that be helpful?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, if you can think of your career as like going down a freeway, the whiners, the energy drainers, the complainers, they're the traffic. So if you had to think of a traffic sign for whiners, think of a crosswalk where someone's hand holding someone across the street. That's what the whiners want. They're always, why doesn't anyone care about this but me? Poor me. I love this one. I'm so sick and tired of this place. Okay, go find another place. Or do you know anybody where you say, how are you doing? And they go, or I didn't hear you speak up. I'm fine. And so what do you think a whiner, Thom, since it's the most common, what are they trying to get out of you? What do you think?
They're trying to get sympathy for you to feel for them. Well, I don't know.
Yeah, some of that it's empathy. They want that empathy. They want you to understand their issues. And believe it or not, the whining is a way to form a relationship. Doesn't sound reasonable, doesn't sound logical, but they're whining in order to have a better relationship with you. So would you like to know how to negotiate with them? How do you turn this one around?
Yeah, because if it's the most common and we see it all the time, we need to turn it around. So what can we do?
Right. Well, the very first thing you got to do is listen to them. Because again, they're whining so that you'll listen. So you're going to want to listen, and then you're going to want to show them that you heard what they had to say. So something that's shows your empathy, like, wow, that sure sounds rough, or, oh gosh, that sounds tough. You can even say, I don't know what I would do, because that's what they're coming for you, is for you to take on their problem. And then you can't point at them and go, so what are you going to do? Because that's not going to be polite. And they're going to go whine about you somewhere, right? So instead go, wow, that sure sounds rough. Huh? What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about that? Well, I came to see you about it. Oh, gosh, I'm glad it's not my problem. I don't know. I've given you every idea I've got. What are you going to do? And do you think, Thom, that makes them stop whining in all aspects of their life?
Well, of course, it's not going to stop them whining in all things, but they're probably not going to come to you whining if you're pushing them to find a solution. That's probably not what the whiner wants.
Right. So now you're not fun. So if they come back to you, they're either going to come back with a solution, or they're going to go whine somewhere else. And either way, that's a win. That is a negotiation. There's a stop to that. So again, why do we want it? We want it to negotiate and stop.
So I love that. But the one that made me kind of cringe was the complicator, because I have run into people who just want to take everything easy and make it much more complicated. So tell me about the complicator and what we can do with them.
Great. Your engineers are going to see a lot of this. And this may be where they go on their default when they get stressed. The real need that a complicator has, and you know who those complicators are. Oh, this will never work. Where's your detail? There's not enough research to support it. Or I love the passive aggressive. You ready for this one? This problem's a lot more complex than you think. Meaning you're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. That's what's behind that. So why do they do it? And that's the question you always want to say. What are these reasons? What are the good reasons they're trying to do this? Just so you don't freak out, right? The good reasons are they're trying to keep things stable and in control. Because how can you know everything? How can you leverage all your information if you don't have the information and things keep changing? So when you see people do that, they're trying to keep things in control and get it right. They want things to be right. So with them, slow your jets down. And think of their sign as being that, that steep grade ahead, reduce speed. You've seen that truck reduce your speed. And what you're going to do is slow down your communication, probably have to over communicate. And then what you're going to have to say is, I respect your effort and what you've done here. And this is an upgrade to this system that you have, the procedures you have, the way of doing things. And this is where we're moving. This is the direction we're moving. You know what's worse for a know-it-all, a complicator? It's not worse changing. It's worse not being in the change. Because how can you know it all if you're not there?
All right, so let's jump down to the bottom of the list. Let's go right for those people who are toxic. What do we do? What do we do with the evil toxic people?
Well, first off, you're going to be confused about them. That's pretty common. You say, I don't know what I've got here. Sometimes they're passive aggressive. Sometimes they're whiny. Sometimes they're very bullying, like a controller. Sometimes they're larger than life. I don't know what I have. So that's one good hint. When you feel out of control when you're with them, it might mean you have a toxic. Toxics will say things that are really illogical. So maybe you have a problem and you go to them and say, I've got a question about this. And they say, well, not everyone can handle this challenge. Well, how does that answer my question? It doesn't. It just makes you confused. Or you find out they were talking about you at a meeting. No, I've got no idea why they'd say that. Or, wish I could have helped you, but what? I wanted to throw you under the bus. So the quote that somebody gave me just really hits, really represents them. A few people said they were a snake. This one's the best. He was like a snake in the grass, slithering from spot to spot, leaving rotting destruction in his way. Love it, right? All you can do with these folks is first protect yourself, meaning when you feel like, well, I don't understand why I can't work with him, her, them, whatever, start writing down the exact words. Like you're taking a picture, a video, or a recording. What are the exact words? What happened? One of my friends, very technical friend, she brought in cookies. She was smiling and happy and kind of singing to herself under her breath. And her boss says to her, I know you're up to something or you wouldn't be so happy. What? Okay, that's crazy, right? So when she wrote it down, she went, oh yeah, that's a weird comment for someone who just got free cookies, right? From a happy employee. The second is watch what works. Some people really have great effect on this individual. Some people can work with them. Watch what they do. And then the third one is steer clear from them. If you can move to another team, if you can move to another project, if you can separate yourself from them in any way. And if you're the leader, get rid of these people. Get rid of them because sometimes we'll say, oh, they're such a good producer. We'll just make sure nobody reports to them. Give me a break. You are going to get promoted. They're not going to see the note in the file, your replacement, and that person is now going to be in charge of people. They can't be. So there's some good, but there's some good news. You ready for this?
Yeah, please.
Only 1 in 20 are absolutely toxic.
So this brings up an interesting thing with all these 5 different types of complainers that are out there. So I imagine as the person listening, if you have to deal with someone like this, there's 3 different things going on. 1 is, what if it's your boss? 2, what if it's a peer? And 3, what if it's somebody who reports to you? So how do we deal with these people in those different types of situations? So let's start that if the person who's the problem, regardless of where they fall, is your boss. How do you deal with these whiners and
that's
complainers
a tough one.
And energy drainers?
You have to first see how prevalent is it? I mean, how bad of a controller is this person? How bad of a prima donna? How bad? And then constantly, if it's really severe, see if you can't transfer because you may not be equipped to do this. The other thing, though, is you can say, what's their need they're trying to fill? So we didn't talk about the controllers or prima donnas. The controllers are trying to get things done. Prima donnas are trying to get attention. So if it's a prima donna and they always take credit for your work, what are you going to do? Well, you're going to copy an email and say, thanks, Paul, prima don, for your support in getting this done. So they got the attention, you got the attention, everybody knows, and you're going to start thinking, what are the reasons this person's acting like this? It might be they don't trust you yet. It might be something's blocking and they can't get things done. So you constantly have to be asking that question. Now, that works no matter who it is. That can be a peer. I wonder why they're bossing me around. They're not my boss, right? It could be a whiner. We've talked about that. Why is this person I work with doing this? And so live in the question. Always be kind of saying to yourself, what is going on here? Is it them or is it me? What do I need to try to address? If they're your employee, here's the one thing I heard in software engineering, a super leader. What she said was, the employee said, well, nobody's ever told me that before. And I've been transferred 3 times. And she nodded and she smiled and she said, look, you have a lot of skills. You have a lot of talent. And I am worried that nobody's ever told you that before. That's the gift I'm giving you today, is this is what's keeping you from being promoted. You keep being transferred, not promoted. So if you're the leader and you really have a good heart and you really want your people to grow, addressing these issues and also watching, this is a stress reaction for this person. I wonder why all of a sudden they're getting really bossy. I wonder why all of a sudden they're trying to grab the attention. I wonder why all of a sudden they've shut down and they're trying to just do very, very detailed and micromanage people. I wonder why all of a sudden they're not participating. Is this different than their behavior? What are they trying to do? And then have a conversation, say, what's up?
So Linda, how many hours a week have you found in your study? How many hours a week do complainers eat up in the workplace, and how much productivity is lost because these people exist?
Are you ready for this? 80%, well, 78% to be precise, of us spend at least 3 to 5 hours a week. 3 to 5 hours a week. Some people as many as 20 hours a week on people who are draining our energy. So roll that forward, Tom, 3 to 6 hours a week, right? What does that roll into? That's a month or 2 of lost time every year dealing with people who are not pulling their weight. They're trying to shove their issues into productive time. You've got to stop it. And what's even scarier is 11% of people have left. Now, the people that leave because of an energy drainer or a complainer, those are the people with the options, your high potentials, your high performers. They don't put up with people because they have other places to go. So now all of a sudden you've lost your high potentials. And here's the big one. 73% of us, and this is survey results over 1,000 people, 73% of us would turn down a raise of $10,000 in a promotion if it meant we had to work with one of these energy draining people.
Wow. So people would rather make less money than have to be around one of these types of people who's really causing problems in the workplace. That's something that really every team needs to be aware of. So how do we make this message? I mean, obviously you've written a book on it, but how do we make this message something that's talked about in the workplace?
We create our own rules. We make sure that we have, what are the tolerables? What do we do here? What do we want? And what are the intolerables? What does this team not do? So this team does not, and a lot of teams will say, you have to be able to pitch in, you have to come with a positive attitude, you have to try, you have to ask for help. All those things that when it gets stressful, you can go back and you can go, oh yeah, remember we agreed, we're going to do this again. And that's really clear. The other thing is you've got to value different types. And that's probably where the biggest problems are. So just like these are all negative, there's positive styles, communication styles. And for me, it's negotiation styles on the other side. And you've got to develop that, because once we appreciate the gifts each other brings, then all of a sudden, a lot of these kind of, well, he or she or they communicate differently than I do. Well, yeah, because we're all different people. Hey, and here's a cool thing, because often my logical people say, well, I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. It's not logical. Right. It's not logical. Half of this is emotion and relationship. But I bet you have a person in your life, and it might be why you're so triggered by this person, that acted this way, positive and negative. Tap into those people. Go back to your back and go, oh yeah, my sister's like this. My cousin's like this. A teacher was like this. My old boss is like this. And remember what worked there. And that's logically how you get there. It worked for them. Let's see if these things will work for this other person.
All right, so let's get down to some brass tacks here. If you were coaching someone who's listening and they're dealing with one or more of these types of people in their workplace, and they're not the boss, they can't transfer them out or let them go, let's give a couple of takeaways right now that people can do to just make their life, less complicated by these people who want to complicate things, who want to whine about things, who want to be prima donnas, who want to be controllers, and who are toxic. What can they do right now when they stop listening to the podcast?
Okay, take a big deep breath. If you can't identify who you're dealing with, I have free resources that they can go and get from Stop Complainers, and I'll give you a text back that they can do. Figure out what type you're dealing with. That'll give you more information. You can then calmly assess and say, oh, wait, this person feels out of control because of all the change we've been having, or they don't feel like they're getting things done, or boy, this person's getting no attention right now for all the work they're doing. And logically, if you can identify it, and you can say, now I can have a conversation with them and say, well, what's going on? What's happening here? Then I can talk to them in more practical terms. So the big thing is take a big deep breath. This is not your problem. Your problem is just how are you going to talk to this other person? How are you going to communicate? Avoiding them, by the way, not an option. You avoid them, some of these people will become your worst nightmare. Some will Velcro themselves to you until they get what they want. Some of them will make you the problem. So you must address. You got to negotiate it so you can stop it.
All right. So you've worked with a lot of companies and a lot of individuals, dealing with these types of things. So what do you wish everybody understood about dealing with difficult people?
Most difficult people, most complainers and energy drainers are like most of us. They're doing the best they can with what they're given. They may be in the wrong job. They may have some big stressors at home. There may be something really rough. For the rest of them, they don't belong. You cannot encourage that kind of behavior because when you encourage it, it grows. So if they're toxic and you've got a way to get away from them or get them out, to do it. If they are someone that is causing a culture, you got to kind of put a stop to it and say, we've been gossiping up until this date. We're not doing that moving forward. If it's not positive, we're not going to say it. You have to have those rules. Whether you're the coworker, you can have your own rules and say, I can't do that. You can even say it to your boss. Boss, when you yell at me like that, I can't hear it. So let's reconvene here in 30 minutes. Here's the thing. You are in control of your career, and that's it. You're the only one that's going to take care of you, your family, whatever. You got to make those choices. You got to negotiate your own career. And, as much as you'd like to hide from them, as much as you'd like somebody else to deal with it, they're not going to. You have to set up your own boundaries.
So you mentioned that you have some resources that people can get. Where can they go to find these resources?
Well, you can always go to stopcomplainers.com. The most favorite resources, I've put some links in, and this is what I've done for my clients. Go to your text function and text in the text 42828. 42828, and then the bottom of the message, put ASK. Hit send. It'll ask you for your email. And it'll send you a couple of links and then another email with another couple of links. And if this is helpful, about once a month I do an e-tip. If it's not, unsubscribe then. You all can do this. This is something you can positively negotiate this work drama. And I just had an article published, Tom, on this, on Stop Work Drama. It's a 6-page article, and I will send that to them as well. I think that'll help. Go on those assessments. They're for you. And if you think, oh no, I could be the complainer, there's one there for you too, to figure out, how do I complain? How do I stop it?
So I was just about to wrap up, but I want to jump on that. What if someone's listening to this going, oh no, it's me? What can they do?
Well, again, there's something stressing you. So when you start seeing yourself behave in some of these ways, first go take that assessment and go, oh no, I'm acting like a whiner. See how often you're doing it. For me, it's a clue. Oh no, I'm getting really bossy right now. Oh no, I'm larger than life right now. What's going on that I feel like I'm not in control? I feel like things aren't getting done. Or maybe I don't feel like I'm getting the attention I need. So look at your behavior and then go, whoops. And it's just a sign to calm down, go take care of yourself and get those needs met.
So would you say that your husband, your kids, and the colleagues you work with would all say that you never whine and complain?
Yeah, no, they would not. Some of these pages were written for me, and some of them are written for people I love.
Well, I do know that sometimes the expert needs to hear their own tips, but I've never seen you be a complainer or a whiner. So, Linda, thank you so much for joining us here on the Digital Enterprise Society podcast. And to everybody who's listening, go check out stopcomplainers.com and find out all the good stuff that she has going on there. All right. Thank you so much for joining this episode. I want you to make sure that you're subscribed and following the Digital Enterprise Society podcast on Apple, on Spotify, on Stitcher, heck, wherever you get your podcasts from. Make sure that you're following it. Leave us a review. We like to read those reviews. Craig and I have a lot of fun when we get those positive reviews about how much people like this show. And then do this. Be sure to tell your other friends who work in and around product lifecycle management about this podcast, because we want more people to be able to hear all the great resources that we bring. And then join us every single week for more thoughts, ideas, and information in and around product lifecycle management. The Digital Enterprise Society is the place for the exchange of ideas around digital manufacturing tools. Go check us out right now at digitalenterprisesociety.org.
You've been listening to the Digital Enterprise Society podcast. Learn more about what you've heard here today at digitalenterprisesociety.org. Join us again next week for more connection without boundaries and creation without limits.